Yes, good afternoon. This is the 7th meeting of the Bills Committee on the Marriage Amendment Bill 2014. We've got a quorum already. So let's invite the administration and the medical professionals in. We have 5 medical professionals with us. In fact, members met them during the last 2 meetings. As for the officials, we have the same team: Ms. Maggie Wong, Deputy Secretary for Security; Mr. Billy Wu, PAS for Security; Mr. David Chiu, Assistant Director, Immigration Department; and Mr. Alan Chong, Senior Government Counsel, Department of Justice. I want to discuss with members the arrangements for our future meetings. Earlier on, the Secretariat asked members to indicate whether they wanted the scrutiny of the bill to be completed within this session. And most members who responded said that the Bills Committee should try its best to complete the scrutiny of the bill within the session. But of course, we can only try our best. And so after today's meeting, we're going to schedule 2 more meetings. And please block your slots in your diary. 16th of June, 4:30 p.m. Then 17th of June, 10:45 a.m. Why is it that we are proposing 2 meetings on 2 consecutive days? That is because we need to report to House Committee on the 9th of July in order that the resumption of second reading of the bill can take place within this session. And we have made these meeting arrangements in the light of members' inclination. Mr. Fernando Zhang, yes, I want to say something, Chairman. I remember last time, Chairman, you asked us about our preferences or inclinations. And I can remember that most of the members present felt that there was no need to hurry. But then, Chairman, you said that according to the survey conducted by the Secretariat, we should try to finish the scrutiny of the bill within this session. But those who said they wanted the bill, the scrutiny to be completed as soon as possible, do not attend the Bills Committee's meetings too often. Now, we had a meeting only a few days ago, and today we are having another meeting. So, members who responded to the survey, some of them said that they wanted the Bills Committee to hurry, but then they do not really attend the Bills Committee's meetings too often. And then on the other hand, members who try to attend the Bills Committee's meetings are of the view that we shouldn't hurry. Mr. Tommy Zhang, Chairman, last time I said that whether the bill is passed or not within this session will not affect what the administration needs to do. This is a new bill. There are many new definitions in the bill, and last week, members were told that they shouldn't just ask the doctors questions, they should read up the relevant materials themselves. And I have been reading a book which consists of over 200 pages on the subject. And even despite the filibustering, I could not finish reading the book because it was really quite a long book, and it was a complicated subject. And I don't know whether I want to move CSAs, Chairman, to the bill. you want to report to a House Committee on the 9th of July. But then, the Finance Committee is having triple session meetings on Fridays, and it has been proposed that a meeting of the FC be held to discuss the vote of no confidence. Now, you said that some members suggested that we should try our best, but it seems that, Chairman, you're not just aiming to try your best, and for the Bills Committee to try its best. It seems that you want to beat the deadline of 9th of July, and I really have reservations. Mr. Chen Kin-po, I think we should follow this timetable, Chairman. I think you should act in accordance with the outcome of the survey, and you shouldn't change that outcome at a meeting at which many members are not present. Now, members who are not present today or now doesn't mean that they don't mind, doesn't mean that they don't care, doesn't mean that they are lazy. They may be working upstairs, they may be observing the proceedings. Mr. Chan Chi-chun. So, Chairman, you have collected members' views and preferences, and I think you are trying to schedule more meetings in the hope that the scrutiny of the bill can be completed within this session. Can I ask you whether this is your objective, whether you think we must complete the scrutiny of the bill within this session? Now, because we may have new questions, and we haven't really dealt with the legal advisor's questions and the administration's replies. I don't mind having more meetings, but then it would be problematic if we can't, if the administration can't give us all the replies, and if we don't have time reading the replies and asking follow-up questions. This is most unsatisfactory. Mr. Yu Siwing. Yes, Chairman. I attend the Bills Committee meeting almost every time. But then members are absent because of different reasons. As you know, there are frequent clashes of meetings, and it's not surprising to have a member having to attend 2 or 3 meetings at the same time. Chairman, in fact, the bill itself is very simple. Because of CFA's ruling on W's case, there is a need for a government bill as a follow-up action on the case. Now, concerning the transgenders, I want to say that there is a group led by the S4J to study these issues. And so I think we should try to complete the scrutiny of the bill within this session. It's just a simple bill. Why should we be dragging our feet? But of course, even if we can't complete the scrutiny of the bill within the session, it doesn't mean that it will be doomsday. Mr. Kwok Wai Kang. I want to thank the chairman and the secretariat for having issued the questionnaire to members. I think we've all replied concerning this bill put forward in the wake of the CFA's judgment. I think this bill is relatively simple, and the content, I think, should be easily understood or readily understood by members. Now, some members may have certain certain ways of thinking, and I think because of these, it may take a year, 2 years, or even more time to really deal with the bill. I think we need to be pragmatic. After all, filibustering has wasted a lot of our time. I think this is a fact.
Any other points? All right. First, let me clarify. I think Mr. Chen's understanding is correct. We are not saying that it is a must that we pass the bill by July the 9th. We want to be serious. We don't want to do it rashly. So, and there are 14 members who have given me a very definite reply. Sari Chen, Priscilla Leung, Regina Yip, Paul Tse, Frederick, Frankie Yek, Martin Liu, Tanka Pio, Lo Wai Kwok, Christopher Zhong, Tony Z, and myself, and also a few others. There are 14 altogether who, well, for those who believe that we don't really must pass it, this year we have Miss Emily Lau, Tommy, Zheng, Lanka Lau, Gary Fan, Charles Mock, Raymond Chen, Fernando Zheng, Dr. Helena Wong, and three did not give us any indication. So I will not discuss whether we can do it or not. We will try our very best. I am not saying that for sure we must pass it by the 9th of July. We will work according to that timetable. So on the 16th and 17th of June, we have 2 meetings scheduled respectively. So I pause the discussion of this subject here, and I also like to welcome the administration, and I also apologize to the 5 experts who have given us really invaluable advice. Once again, may I thank these 5 medical professionals. We have Dr. Albert Yun, consultant, Department of Surgery from Rattanji and Teng Shougen Hospitals. Dr. Ho Pui Tat, Associate Consultant of Kwai Chung Hospital. Dr. Greg Mack, Associate Consultant from Castle Peak Hospital. Dr. Ng Man Lun, Clinical Co-Director of Academy of Family Therapy, and Dr. Hong Kwai Wah, Specialist in Psychiatry. So, let's see if members have further questions arising from our previous 2 meetings. All right. Hands up, those who would like to ask questions. Leung Ka Liu, Kwok Wai Keung, Ma Fung Kwok. Before we start, I believe that Dr. Ng has some introductory remarks to make. So I give the floor to Dr. Ng first before I open the floor to our members. Thank you very much for giving me time, perhaps about 5 minutes. Well, this afternoon, Dr. Hong submitted a paper naming myself, and he disagrees the trend of degenderization, the world is moving along. I think this has nothing to do with this meeting. This is very theoretical. It's just about betting on which horse will win in a race. We talk about what will happen in the future. In fact, many facts can support the claim that we're moving towards this direction. If you choose not to believe it, there is nothing I can do. In my letter to Hong Kong a few weeks ago, broadcast on RTHK, I pointed out a series of changes happening in society. So will this be the direction the world is going to take? I don't know. And I won't say that this can be done at once. Nothing. Degenderization cannot happen at once. Whether that will take place in the future, no one can say for sure. And may I supplement on a few questions which I didn't have enough time to answer. Now, Dr. Hong is different from we. He distributed papers for members to read at home. I didn't have the opportunity, nor did I wish to. I just like to remind you that you have to read those documents very carefully. He also gave a PowerPoint which included a few things. First, you have to take note that he was talking about unrest with gender. I think this is some uneasiness with gender. I think this is very different from transsexual. Now, for kids, well, if you think that because the situation can change, then in future transsexuals can be turned to so-called straight again. Well, this is very different. I think many psychiatrists know that for uneasiness with person's gender happens quite frequently in a child, and for many children, because of their development, the problem will go away even without any help. So please do not confuse this with some other things. And in his PowerPoint, he also pointed out Hyper Benjamin's criteria for assessing or for taking care of transsexuals. I think this is already outdated. Benjamin's criteria was published in 2001, and that's 13 years ago. Now people are following World Path standard. They are following a World Path standard. I hope my students in Kwai Chung are using World Path standard criteria instead of Benjamin's criteria, which should be in the museum. And in his first PowerPoint, Dr. Hong said that medicine is now politicized because for the sake of political correctness, medical spirit, the spirit of medicine is sacrificed. I beg to differ. Why can't political correctness align with medical correctness? Why should the two be in conflict? I don't think we can view medicine and politics in this way. The two can cooperate. Yes, although there may be some clashes between the two. Psychiatrists were manipulated by dictators to exclude dissidents. Well, that happened, but for most of the time, politics and medicine could cooperate very well to achieve progress. I think the world has progressed. We are in a freer and more equal world, and I believe people are far healthier. People live longer now, so I disagree that we should regard politics and medicine to be in conflict with each other. Otherwise, we won't be able to make a very good decision. If we think that the two are in conflict, I hope we will not approach this subject with this mentality. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ng. Dr. Hong, you have something to add? Well, since Dr. Ng mentioned some points, I do have the responsibility to respond. In particular, some members might not be present last time. All right, Dr. Ng talked about the global trend of degenderization. I do agree that this is a trend in the Western world in particular. This is really happening. So I am not saying that I don't believe that this is happening. Is just the opposite. I believe it is happening, and that's why I am worried. And I disagree that this is a phenomenon of an open society. And I think And Dr. said that the notion of degenderization has nothing to do with the current amendment to the marriage ordinance. I beg to differ. Now, if you go back to the handout I gave last time, now allow me to spend some time on that. In the past, the definition of sex was based on anatomical sex objective. So in the past, there were only 3 types of sex: male, female, and intersex. And then the marriage ordinance is on the basis of biological sex by birth, and is union between a man and a woman. So the first step of degenderization is to use objective or subjective gender recognition to replace objective sex, and therefore we have pro-gender recognition. So there can be numerous possibilities, not just male and female. And Dr. mentioned 6 or 7 different genders. There can be numerous possibilities. All these are relevant to the amendment bill we have in question. And our definition of man and male was first based on biological sex by birth. Now we have to cover men and male that have gone through SRS, a full SRS. So this has drastically changed the definition of sex. We are now using subjective gender recognition to replace biological sex. This is the first step in Hong Kong to go along the route of degenderization. I don't believe this is a sign of progress. I'm of the view that degenderization will cause gender confusion in Hong Kong, and this is not something desirable. And last time we mentioned Connie Francis and Thomas Beattie. The first took the identity of a woman and the body of man to go into a female changing room, and the latter, he got pregnant as a man and as a husband. So I believe degenderization is a product of Western society, and the ultimate goal is full sex liberalization, and it is a kind of cultural invasion. So whether we agree that degenderization is happening in Hong Kong or not, I think Dr. Ng was correct. This is not an overnight process, rather a gradual one. By changing the definition of man and woman in the marriage ordinance is the first step. So in discussing this amendment bill and in considering further relaxing the threshold of gender, I urge members to take my points seriously. Thank you.
Yes, let me respond. In fact, last time I said very clearly concerning gender uneasiness among adults. I didn't say that whether the changes will be easier with children or with adults. And in fact, I've helped a dozen adults of gender dysphoria. And I think it's difficult to really help them overcome their uneasiness. Dr. Leung, so I have some of my colleagues here. I want to say that as a doctor, Of course, I have my own moral, philosophical, cultural values and standards. Now, of course, Dr. and Dr. Hong may have very different views, but then we have to resolve a practical issue. And that is, we have the existing ordinance and there is the amendment, but then both are problematic. For the existing ordinance, it doesn't provide a definition in the law for male and female. And in fact, the administration has not told me how male and female are defined. And so in the absence of such definitions, the proposed amendments lack a sound basis. So how do we define male and female medically? Now, Dr. Hong, your submission mentioned intersex. I don't know what the definition is. Maybe the embryo while in the mother's womb is affected by some hormones and the development of the sex organs is not too precise. Maybe it's either X or Y. But then say in the mother's womb, the female hormone level is very high, and as a result, the sex organ is not a typical male sex organ. And as a result, when a baby is born, it's difficult to immediately ascertain whether the baby is male or female. I want to say that neither the existing ordinance nor the amendments can satisfactorily deal with these issues. So can I ask our experts, our medical professionals, to give some professional advice to the administration? Can the existing ordinance deals with these objective diseases or intersex? Or is it that neither the ordinance nor the amendments can deal with these issues? I'll try to give an answer. Doctors may wish to supplement. Now, how do I look at the existing marriage ordinance? Before the marriage, the couple has to produce the birth certificates, and the birth certificates show the biological sex. Sorry, Chairman, because I don't want to waste time, because time is limited, because each member can be given only 5 minutes, including replies. Now, say, for example, there is an intersex, but then this term can't appear on the birth certificates. So very often the gender appearing on the birth certificate is female. But then when this person grows up, this person discovers that, in fact, this person is XY, in fact, male. So how can the amendment resolve such a case? Now, I think Dr. Yun can supplement. If there is any ambiguity of the sex, now let me look at the chromosome. If it's XY, then let's say the organ is male, and yet the appearance or the external may be female. So how do we determine the sex? We look at the organs. But I'm talking about how the law can deal with such a case. Now, when the person was born, the person was XY, the baby was XY, but then she was regarded as female. So how can the ordinance or the bill resolve cases of this sort? Dr. Yun. Now, both you and I, Dr. Leung, are doctors. We don't know the law, so I think we have to get the advice of the legal experts. Now, Hong Kong U has recently held a symposium on the management of the surgical side. I understand that say when a baby is born, it's difficult to determine. I think there is a mechanism for change later. Yes, Ms. Wong, Chairman, concerning the W case, it shows very clearly that the common law situation is clear, and that says it depends on the gender or sex by birth. For W, she has received SRS from male to female. Dr. Leung Kalau is raising another situation. When a baby is born, the sexual or the characteristics are not clear. I understand that the doctor in charge's view will be consulted, the parents will be consulted, and then the gender or the sex of the baby will be determined. Mr. Kwok Wai Keung, I thank Dr. Ho for his advice. Dr. Hong, is that right? No, Dr. Ho, Associate Consultant, Kwai Chung Hospital. Out of 10 to 30,000 people, one person wants to change from male to female, and then 1 out of 20 to 100,000 wants to change from female to male. So we will only be talking about a total of 20 persons, maybe not all of them will choose to get married. You know, in modern day society, people do not necessarily want to get married. They can just live together. Now, we were told that before the SRS, psychological tests were carried out, psychological adjustments were carried out. But then here, under this the marriage ordinance, we're talking about the marriage. Yes, I understand that before the SRS, psychological counseling and tests were carried out. But then concerning marriage, the constructing of a new family, for a male who has become a female and wants to get married with a male, is there a need for counseling or follow-up action? Now, this bill is only about the physical change, the physical changes. But what about the psychological changes and how they are going to cope with a marriage? All right. Do you want who will answer the question? I want all the doctors to answer. All right. The experts, please. Yes, Dr. Mac. Yes, these are problems that they face. Marriages, families, they are disturbed very on a daily basis sometimes by gender dysphoria. And we need to help them deal with very practical difficulties, constructing a family, the spouse. Then for those who have got married, how they get along with their spouses, their children. And so we do carry out assessments and then provide counseling. Now, of course, some are rejected by their family members. For example, parents abandon them, parents reject them, parents do not want to see them anymore. And then for some of them, their families break up. These are the more common problems. So after the surgery, of course, he or she has to face his or her own family. But then what about building a new family? Now, in the whole assessment, last time we mentioned a few times real life experience. We try to let them get a feel of their life after the surgery. For example, how they will face and get along with the husband, the wife, the spouse. So we need to tell them what difficulties they may face after the surgery. Mr. Ma Fong Kwok and then Mr. Dennis Kwok, Deputy Chairman. Yes, I want to seek the views of the doctors. We understand that some may want to undergo surgery, and this may not be because of pressure from society. This is one school of thought. And there is another school of thought, and that is after the surgery, they think they may still not be able to achieve their objectives. As a result, they don't want to undergo the surgery. For example, there are difficulties constructing the organs if a female wants to become a male. So I understand that there are these arguments. So how do the experts look at this matter? And some have said that such surgeries are tantamount to torture, and people should not be forced to undergo such surgeries. But then I understand that there is another school of thought. So who can answer this question? Dr. Yun, let me speak first as I perform the operation. This is not torture. I think those who know these things know that people can't be forced to undergo such surgeries. Yes, constructing a penis is complicated, and constructing a penis with the necessary functions may involve a few operations. But then some of these recipients of the surgeries may be only in their 20s or 30s. They need to work to earn a living, and some may not want to go through so many operations. So in fact, there are different options. They can choose one operation or a series of operations. So there's a choice for those who choose to undergo such surgeries. And concerning the construction of the penis, there are simpler options, simpler operations, and more complicated options or operations. I just want to know whether Mr. Ma, you are satisfied with this reply. Let me also try to give an answer. As I explained last time, now in fact there is a spectrum of gender identity disorder or gender dysphoria. Some may feel that they need a surgery in order to resolve the gender identity disorder. So we arrange the best treatment for them. Some may want to go all the way. Some may prefer to go halfway, and for someone who wants to go halfway, if we say we want them to go all the way, they may not accept that. So we make a decision after discussion with the patient. We discuss with the patient the appropriate treatment for him or her, the risks involved, the advantages, the disadvantages, and the patients can have to say, they can decide what they want.
Dr. Hong. If because of surgical difficulties, a person is forced not to carry out the operation, well, for gender dysphoria, there is a spectrum it is a spectrum. If a person would like to carry out SRS, he or she should be quite insistent. Maybe he may be unhappy while waiting, but usually they are able to persevere. I've seen cases where people wanted to carry out the operation in Thailand or the mainland because they have been waiting for too long in Hong Kong, and they rather carry out the operation partially outside Hong Kong. Mr. Dennis Kwok. As the doctor said, sometimes even married people would like to have SRS. I'd like to ask, according to experience, after SRS, what will be the impact on the marriage itself? Were there examples, other examples where the marriage can continue even though one party has carried out SRS? Dr. Mack, thank you for your question. I think we have to separate two things. Whether there is a marriage or not, before a patient opts for this irreversible SRS, we must have a very extensive and in-depth discussion of issues involving, including a marriage, as referred by you. Of course, usually the patient will not do it furtively and tell his wife afterwards. I rarely see these cases. Usually, they will come with their spouse, which will also have his or her own view. So the patient who wants to take the operation must have gone through very thorough consideration before he makes such a move. So usually the regret rate is not high because is usually a well-considered decision. Now, I do not just do surgery. I also follow up such cases, and I think I've seen close to 100 cases, though none of them were operated on by me. As I mentioned at the last meeting, there was an example where the two partners were in very good relationship. They took their daughter along for follow-up sessions, and even the daughter knew that the father had carried out an SRS. I don't want to split up a family because of that. Now, I am barrister, and the Bar Association differs from the administration on one point. Now, currently, a marriage has to be between a male and a female. If in the course of a marriage, one party has changed his or her gender, what will be the impact legally on this marriage? And from what I heard from you, even if one party to a marriage has changed his gender, there are cases that the marriage can continue. So our duty is to ensure that the marriage would not be affected, and it is our responsibility to uphold the family and to protect the family. So I hope that from a legal point of view, we can clear out gray areas in the law as far as possible. Thank you very much. Mr. Yun? Your case came even before there was the CFA ruling. Now, does the family still exist, or the operation was done before the CFA ruling? That was before 2013, when the ruling was handed down. So there's been no change to that marriage. They are still together. What about their ID? The father has his sex on the ID being female. All right. So there are cases where a party to a marriage has changed his gender, and they remain as a couple, and you will not regard it as a homosexual marriage. Well, as a doctor, I only consider the well-being. I don't care about the law. Well, because people will say that if you allow that, that means you are legalizing homosexual marriage. Well, we are here to treat patients. Ethics and moral are not for us. At least this is my view. All right, Deputy Secretary, if that has happened, there are two females in this marriage. What will be the situation like? In our written reply to the BC, we already provided an answer, because this question was indeed asked by the Bills Committee. The purpose of the amendment is to reflect the ruling in W's case in our law. And that case was about a married person can marry a person of a different of the opposite sex under the marriage ordinance. So we are seeking to clarify this in the law. The bill is not about a situation that happens after there is already a marriage. But under the marriage ordinance, a marriage is between a male and a female, and is in the present tense. It has to remain between a male and a female. Have you considered what for those already married, if they have one party has changed his gender, what will happen to an existing marriage? You've never considered that? All marriages registered under the marriage ordinance have to satisfy the requirements in the marriage ordinance. So long as these requirements are satisfied, then this is a legal marriage. So when this couple got married, the marriage was registered between a man and a woman, or a male and a female. Well, this couple's marriage would not be avoided simply simply because one party to the marriage has undergone an SRS. Thank you. Mr. Ray Chan. Although the administration said that the amendment bill was not intended to deal with the situation referred to by Mr. Dennis Kwok, I think this may be one of the consequences, and you may have you might be challenged in the court. All right. According to the administration, a marriage is defined by law to be between male and female. Now, if a party to a marriage has undergone SRS to change his gender, then can the other party apply to the court to nullify that marriage? Now, if there is some marriage with two Fs, two females, then other people may challenge, why can't the same rights be enjoyed by two persons who are also two females and not yet married? In the UK, because they have civil union, the parties are required to divorce first before one party is allowed to have his sex reassigned, and then would it be his last submission and the written submission here? Dr. Hong would like to stretch the discussion to the question of sex crime, or for instance, if a male that has not undergone full SRS exposes his sexual organ in a female changing room, then that is a crime. I'm afraid that this bill will not be able to address that problem. Now, if the amendment bill doesn't require a full SRS, then there may be the scenario of a male who has not undergone full SRS exposing his genitals in a female changing room, causing other females present to feel uncomfortable. What if a man who hasn't done full SRS and yet he is dressed in a female and he goes into a female washroom, female changing room, who will also cause uneasiness to other females present? But for a female, if she hasn't gone through full SRS, she can still be dressed in men's clothes and go into a male changing room. That will also happen. So if we do not fully change the sexual organs, would that bring negative impact on society? Would that cause gender confusion? Would that really lead to sex crimes? Dr. Ng, do you have statistics from overseas? Dr. Ng? Well, these things happened in a piecemeal manner or fragmented situation, so we do not have a full set of statistics. There is no evidence to show that transsexuals are prone to exhibitionists. They are more prone to exhibitionist behavior. At least they are not more prone to such a behavior than normal persons. So a person, regardless he has SRS or not, if he goes into a washroom and exposes genitals, then this is already an offense. So you assume that a person who has not undergone full SRS are more prone to exhibitionist behavior. Well, there is no justification. No, I don't think this possibility exists. Any supplement? No. Mr. Tommy Zhang to be followed by Mr. Christopher Zhong. Is it my turn, Chairman? If a married person has his sex reassigned, this bill will not be able to address that situation, but how will the law be affected in the future?
Now I'm male, and then I become female. But then when I was married, I was male, and the marriage ordinance says marriage is between a male and a female. And then if I change my gender, the marriage can still be preserved. So that would mean two males or two females being able to remain in a marriage. Then will that mean that same-sex marriages are allowed because a marriage can still go on if the two parties are two females or two males? Who can answer this question? I think we should take advantage of the presence of the medical professionals to ask medically related questions. All right, because we have plenty of time to exchange views of the administration. Yes, perhaps you can just jot down my question and hope the legal advisor can also give me his opinion later. However, of course, the two parties may remain happy together. But what if one party seeks a divorce because the other party has the gender reassigned? So it's not as simple as involving only one case. The W case. I'm just worried that there may be far-reaching implications and numerous problems may arise. Perhaps the Bureau can give a reply, but I don't think the reply is assuring enough. Now say I today get married to a female, and then 3 decades later she has her sex reassigned. So how can that marriage go on? Is it that there must be a divorce first? No need. Mr. Chen Chi-chun said that in the UK, a divorce comes before the SRS, but in Hong Kong, that's not the case. Deputy Secretary, under the marriage ordinance, we're talking about the gender at the time of marriage. So a male and a female got married, and then one party wanted to undergo SRS. So under the marriage ordinance, under the matrimonial proceedings ordinance, there are channels available for the parties to get a divorce. But then this is not related to this present amendment. This present amendment relates to the marriage ordinance. It's about the registration of marriage. In other words, the existing channels for seeking a divorce are not affected by this amendment. As members may recall, on the 29th of April, the Secretary of the Interdepartmental Working Group on Gender Recognition, Ms. Ngam, attended the Bills Committee meeting, and she said that if Hong Kong was to establish a gender recognition system, then the implications on our laws would have to be considered. For example, what if a married person wants to seek gender recognition? Ms. An has already said that this needs to be looked at as an issue under gender recognition. This is not related to an unmarried person wanting to undergo SRS and then wanting to get married. When I got married, I was male, and then I changed my gender to female. And then before there is a divorce, can I get married to another person? So what if I got married as a male and then I get married as a female. But then if the existing marriage is still valid, then it's unlawful. It's for you to get married again. Mr. Christopher Zhong, according to Mr. Chen Chi-chun, a divorce must come before an SRS for married persons. I want to know why we are not making reference to the UK practice, because things will be more clear-cut this way. No, because now we're asking whether the marriage will still remain valid if one party has undergone an SRS, and if the marriage can continue, will that amount to a recognition or an endorsement of same-sex marriages? So how come we're not following the UK example this time? Deputy Secretary. Yes, thank you, Chairman. In fact, the doctors said at previous meetings, at this meeting, that the hospital authority doesn't decide on the best treatment for the patient on the basis of a certain policy. But then we are trying to legislate. And so when we legislate, when we make laws, we do not just look at the medical perspective. We also have to consider moral values and standards in society. So how come you do not require those who are married to get divorced first before they can undergo SRS? So we shouldn't be only looking at the medical perspective. When we make laws, we have to look at the moral angle as well. Now, I think that would fall within the broader or the wider topic of gender recognition. The IWG will need to consider in detail the criteria for gender recognition, and will be more appropriate to deal with these issues in that context. So in other words, the present amendments have their flaws or problems. Now, the CFA has handed down a ruling, and that ruling must be enforced. The deadline is the 16th of July. Even if the bill cannot be passed before that date, the ruling still has to be enforced. There is the IWG, Interdepartmental Working Group on Gender Recognition, led by the Secretary for Justice. And so I think this working group was set up because of the CFA judgment. Ms. Sit Ho, sorry, I was attending another meeting. I thank the doctors for coming again. It's good that Dr. Yun is here. Last time, I put this question to the other doctors, and now I would like to put this question to the psychiatrist. Last time, Dr. Yun said that transsexuals need to live in their capacity as people in the opposite sex, and they have to look at whether they can adapt to that. Now, and mention was made of wearing pink socks, high heel shoes. I want to say that because I have to work very hard, and so I have to rush to catch a bus. I have to carry heavy documents, and so I do not wear pink socks or pantyhoses. I do not wear dresses. So this is, I think, non-conformity with gender stereotyping in society. But does it mean that transsexuals must conform to the features of gender stereotyping, because there are females who do not want to conform to their gender stereotype. Disliking one's physical or bodily structure and disliking the appearance are two different things. And I think that Dr. Hong, on the last occasion, mixed up the two. And so I hope that a psychiatrist can help me understand this issue of non-conformity. And how do you assess whether they want to, people really want to switch to another sex or gender? Dr. Hong, in the process, will not ask them to wear certain types of clothes, but rather they have they have certain requirements on themselves concerning their attire, for example. So it is not that the doctor requires the patient to conform to certain gender stereotypes, but rather the patients will decide how they want to be dressed. So why should one wants to conform to society's gender stereotype? Now, this person wants to live as a person of the opposite sex, and all he or she wants is that others can respect his or her choice. Dr. Ho, no, I don't think they must be wearing certain clothes or what. We just want to allay their problems, and there isn't a checklist. For example, what sort of dress should be worn, what sort of socks should be worn, and so on and so forth. But if say she prefers a particular style of attire, no problem. We just want the person to lead a life of better quality after having switched to another sex. Dr. Yun, do you need to supplement because you put forward the viewpoint last time? And that's my understanding of the real life situation. So the psychiatrist may not agree with me. For female clothing on a male body, is it really? I think that that's really obvious, but I understand that psychiatrists need to assess the patients whether they should continue with the SRS. So non-conformity to gender stereotype appearances or should not be regarded as a factor against continuing with SRS. Now, we do not require patients receiving treatment to be dressed in a particular way. So they just do things the way they like. And then as to whether they are at the one end of the spectrum, in other words, having to undergo SRS, Of course, our assessment is one factor, but then they also the patients also tell us what they want and what they need.
用邊啲標準去評核呢？即係除咗佢。
And then what criteria do you adopt other than just letting him to live more happily? Well, the demand is very personal. Some may ask for a full SRS to be done and would not stop at that. And some would choose not to go through a full SRS. They are already happy the way they are. So will not force a person to go through a full SRS unwillingly. And they know full well that under the current law, they cannot change their identity without a full SRS. So within the current confines, we do our best to help them to find a way to live most happily. So whether he can change his gender has nothing to do with the full SRS. No, I don't quite understand your question. If a person wants to change his sex, or if he wants to do a full SRS, he will certainly persevere to the end. Mr. Chan Kim-po, Dr. said that political correctness and medical correctness can coexist. Dr. Hong said that homosexual is not inborn, and if you do not say something that conform with the mainstream idea, you'll be attacked. Now, the reality is you don't say things pleasing to some organizations, pleasing the ears of some organizations, they will attack you. Yes, Dr. said that political correctness and medical correctness can coexist, but Dr. I want to tell you that this is a fact. And Chairman, please, I'd like to appeal to members. We've employed so many experts here, and you see how many of us are present. And then one come in and another goes out. And if we do not sit through a meeting, then people would mix the concepts. For instance, last time somebody confused the concepts of gender dysphoria with homosexual. So this is going to slow down the progress of our meeting. Now, this bill is very narrow. It is about people who are not yet married. However, some people like to bring out the issues of already married couples. I think this is something for the IWG. So I appeal to you, Chairman, you must ensure that this meeting will not drag on indefinitely, because it will be tantamount to filibustering, and people come in and go out, and what will this project to the public? What image of the council would this project to the public? Yes, I understand what you are talking about, but we have 10 members asking questions. And I also appeal to members. Now, if you have medical issues, please put them to the doctors, because the doctors have taken the precious time to be present here. Mr. Posey, I hope I am not making the same mistake as pointed out by Mr. Chan Kim-po. Because of filibustering, we really have many meetings clashing together. So I apologize if I asked a question already asked previously. Right, I'd like to ask this of our specialists, whether it be from the medical or psychological field. So where should we draw the line? It seems that we'd like to draw a line after or at a full SRS. 5 years down the road, will there be any change to cause us to change this line? If yes, how should it be redefined? Now, for the EU human rights, they have been moving the line. In the future, they may even shift it to allow homosexual marriages, and we may have to redefine the definition of male and female. And very quickly, we want to know the level of acceptance within the community. The experts have come into frequent contacts. How can we ascertain the extent of acceptance within the community of such matters? Dr. Ng? All right, where should we draw the line? Yes, the line is moving towards degenderization, so it is going to go closer and closer to that. Now, when it comes to transsexuals within the medical field, now it's quite clear that not all transsexuals have to go through a full SRS, and not all of them wants one, because it has every demerits with no merit. So long as society can accept them, they can still live happily and be transsexuals without any SRS. There are more and more such people. From a medical point of view, SRS is meaningless in the treatment of a patient unless it is so requested by the patient himself. So the line will gradually move to no SRS at all, so long as a person decides to change his sex or gender. If it is confirmed by a doctor that he is not suffering from any psychosis or mental illness, and he is assessed to have the psychology of a transsexual, then he should be allowed. And in some countries, even a medical certificate is not required. And the extent of acceptance of transsexuals in society, I'm not aware of any survey concerning this. Dr. Hong? Thank you, Dr. Z, for your questions. I tend to agree with Dr. Ng. If you just go by medical diagnosis, DSM-3, there are 6 systems, and a person needs only to comply with 2 of the 6. Now, if the person doesn't like his body, he would like to remove his organs, and he would like to install organs of the opposite sex. Now, there may for the remaining 3 symptoms, well, the person doesn't want to carry out the operation at all. He just wants to live in the opposite sex. So, medically speaking, it's true. But now, we talk about equal opportunities. If we allow the gender threshold to relax to such an extent, then females or even as younger girls may be scared if they meet in the changing room a person with the body of a male, but with the gender of a female. Mr. Zhe, I was late, but I have tabled a paper on degenderization. Yes, it is the global trend to liberalize this. The question is whether we want Hong Kong to become like that, and it is something for members to consider. Mr. Ray Chen. Well, on the first occasion, Dr. Yuan gave us the concept that transsexuals tend to have the feeling that the genitals were falsely or wrongly placed there, and they would seek to have them removed, and for organs of the opposite sex to be installed. Well, of course, for cases that went to see Dr. Yun, that may be the case, but there are people who do not want to remove the genitals at all, or they do not want a full SRS. So what is the process? Do you work it out together with the patient, or do you have any criteria to suggest the extent of SRS a patient should go through? Dr. Ho? As I said, we adopt an open mind and will discuss with the patient how far he wants to go. Dr. Yun is the expert. He will also consider the chance of success and also the risk before making a decision, and the extent of SRS required to lessen his psychological symptoms, and will also assess his social adaptation. So we will discuss with the patient and gradually adjust the treatment plan and decide on the extent of SRS and come to a decision. So what is the process? So you first write down a list, half SRS for Dr. Yun to carry it out, and will there be further interaction? Yes, it is a very much interactive process. And the symptoms of the gravity of symptoms also differs. For some patients, they want a full SRS. But for some, it's not so serious. They do not want a full SRS and will respect the wish of the patient. So do you provide the bare minimum service or the full range of service? So if your guideline is to do the bare minimum to make a patient happy, you would stop. Or do you have desire to do? You want it, we will give you full SRS as far as possible, depending on whether you can adapt to that or not. Now, with the amendment to this ordinance, you may have no choice but to try to persuade a patient to carry out full SRS as far as possible. Dr. Ho, as doctors, our duty is to treat diseases. Our intention is to ease gender dysphoria. Whether he can get married after the SRS, well, that is beyond our medical consideration. He may think that after partial SRS, his dysphoria is already eased, but if he wants full legal entitlement, he may opt to do more. It is for him to balance the risk and advantages. And of course, the patient's decision is not just a medical one. There will be his considerations involving his life, and it is not for the doctor to make the decision on behalf of the patient. Dr. Ng, in the past, it was full SRS, and according to Dr. Ho, it is what to satisfy the patient. Does that mean that in the past, usually it was excessive? Yes, in the past, we were rather outdated, and back then, I would go for all or nothing. And that's why I didn't choose to answer this. Now they are modern. Now, for back then, when people accepted full RS, that means they were desperate, they would not regret. But now you see the disease of gender dysphoria has a wide spectrum. Can you tell us the percentage of half SRS and full SRS? Well, we've done a survey in both hospitals. For male who would like to become females, over 90% of them would like to have full SRS.
including the removal and the construction of genitals or sex organs. And about half of the females wanting to become males want full SRS. Ms. Sitho and then Mr. Paul Chair. Now, concerning gender dysphoria. Now, I want to say that people who have gender identity disorder do not like their bodies, and they are subject to a lot of pressure from society. So, can I ask the psychiatrist this question? Concerning patients you came across who wanted SRS. Were there patients who underwent half the SRS, but then no, of course they have they face a lot of pressure because they dislike their body, but then were there patients who, because of pressure from society, decided to undergo full SRS? Now, so concerning that example mentioned by Dr. Kong concerning the changing room situation, no, the person may be a victim of sexual abuse. Now, say if they face a lot of pressure when they go to the toilet, people peep at them to see whether they've undergone full SRS, then have there been cases where patients, in fact, because of the pressure from society, decided to go for full SRS? And for such cases, is it that you would tell them that the problem is with the attitude of the community? Our community is not accommodating enough, and you shouldn't go for full SRS because, or simply because of this? Dr. Mac, so yes, this is an important part of our assessment, and that is does a patient, because of other reasons, wrongly feel that he has to undergo a full SRS before he can lead a happy life? And this is one of the most important indicators adopted by the assessment team. We do not want to see cases where external factors come in. For example, people feel that they are forced to undergo full SRS because of pressure from society. And so people should not feel coerced. They should not feel that the treatment is in fact imposed on them. In fact, in giving treatment, we are trying to help patients find alternative modes of living so that they will face less pressure in their daily lives. So this is exactly why I think it's problematic to require in this bill that people undergo full SRS. In fact, this is a form of pressure from society. No, because people get the feeling that the government requires them to undergo full SRS. So in other words, patients are not merely seeking treatment for their gender identity disorder. They have to take into account other people's perception and viewpoints about their gender identity disorder. So how do you make sure that when patients make their choices, they will only take into account their own needs and not pressure or expectations from society? Dr. Mack, I think we need to build a relationship of trust between the doctor and the patient. And of course, in this relationship of trust, mutual understanding is also very important. And I don't think the patient will want to say or do anything that will make us misunderstand what he or she wants. And so we tell the patient the implications of the decision made. For example, before you undergo or you have undergone full SRS, you can't get married. So as doctors, we have the responsibility to explain the situation to them, what they can do, what they cannot do. And I want to point out one thing, and that is we also need to educate the public on the transgender spectrum. Because at the moment, there is a lot of misunderstanding towards them. And there are wrong assessments, wrong judgments passed on them, and that's because of lack of knowledge and understanding on the part of the public. And so we need to tell the public, say what medical technology we have, what advancements we've made in the medical field in this regard. Yes, the state of development of medical technology is important, but then there are also society's values and standards. Biological factors are easier to understand because there are objective criteria. But then I don't understand why you require full SRS. If a male wants to become a female, having a full SRS will not make the male more female. So why do you require full SRS? Because of the CFA's judgment, we are drawing a line at full SRS. But maybe 5 years down the road, there will have been some breakthrough on DNA, on chromosomes. So is it that we should be led by the nose, by the medical sector, so to speak? Or is it that we need to take into account the different social and cultural background? The doctor said we needed to educate the public, but then the public perception and also affects, or the public's perception also affects our laws. So why is it that we are drawing the line at full SRS? Dr. Ng, I'm more willing to speak beyond the medical context. I don't think the medical field should instruct how our laws should develop. But I understand that in many places in the world, people are looking at ways to take care of both. I don't know whether I've said this before. For example, having a third gender or a fourth gender, or total degendering, or brushing aside the medical aspect or perspective totally. So perhaps we can look at overseas practices. I don't think there is one way, one road, which can be regarded as perfect or the best. Depends on level of sex education, people's knowledge, people's standards. So we have to do it step by step. We can't do things overnight. If there is a change, new problems arise, and then society tries to tackle these new problems. So it's in fact a tedious process. Maybe there are changes every few years. And so even if this bill is passed, maybe a review will be necessary after 1 year. I understand that these are happening in different countries. In fact, different countries have chosen different roads, and they are all different, but there is no one road which is perfect or the best. Mr. Ho said that patients may, because of pressure from society, opt for full SRS. And I want to clarify one point for those observing the proceedings of this meeting. Dr. Ho and some others may think that said that some patients were happy with a partial SRS, but up to what stage of an SRS will you give the patient the status or the of the opposite gender? And that will also bring pressure to bear on the patient, especially if the patient wants to obtain that status or that gender. Dr. Ho, the hospital authority is a service provider. I'll try to answer this question. When doctors talk to patients, we discharge our duties as doctors. We, based on the patient's symptoms, offers the most suitable treatment. But then after the treatment, can society really accept these people? And what rights can these people enjoy under the law? I think that really goes beyond the work or the duties of doctors. So I don't think we can comment as experts. Maybe Dr. Ng can speak from a broader perspective. But as doctors, we can't claim we are experts in the rights of these patients. But then as psychiatrists, we are most willing to listen to society's views. All right. 13 rounds of questions have been raised by 10 members. And we are really grateful to the 5 doctors for their professional advice. And but of course, some members did ask questions on the policies. But I think you have made us understand how you as doctors help patients make their choices. So I would like to once again thank the 5 doctors for coming today. We've spent about 1.5 hours on this part. And I think we need to move on to the next item on the agenda, and that is we'll have to continue our discussion with the administration. So let me thank the 5 doctors once again for coming. So you can be excused. Item 2 on the agenda, meeting with the administration. On the 5th of June, we raised some questions.
The 5th of June. And the administration has given us a reply. We have paper CP21692/1314 Any supplement from UDS? So we have heard the range of questions asked by members involving very complex issues. I'd just like to point out one thing. The ruling by the CFA in the case of W is clear. It's not meant for dealing with heterosexual marriages. Rather, it is about whether a person who has undergone full SRS to marry a person of the opposite sex under the marriage ordinance. And the ruling has pointed out that gender recognition is a very complicated issue, and it urges the administration to address this issue. So, before the suspension so far, we would like to align the ruling of align our statute law with the CFO order, because CFA has already declared the relevant provisions unconstitutional. So we would want to align our statute law with the CFA order in the W case. Meanwhile, the administration has set up an IWG and to deal with a matter of concern to many people, and it's also a very complicated issue involving people who have already undergone treatment, who have not carried out full SRLs, and the various legal implications. So the IWG is going to study in depth all these issues, and all the issues raised by this Bills Committee have been replied to in writing by us, and if members have further questions, we are happy to answer them. Thank you. All right, do we have questions on the administration's response? Mr. Tommy Zhang. Recently, my ears and eyes are not so good. Are you referring to paper 1962/1314 Yes. All right, I have a few questions for the administration. We've heard of this IWG led by the Secretary for Justice. I'd like to know the passage of the bill, or whether otherwise will influence the position of the S4J in this IWG. Are you talking about the IWG? Yes. Thank you, Mr. Tommy Zhang, for your question. The Interdepartmental Working Group on Gender Recognition, led by the Secretary for Justice, was set up in January this year. It is looking at a broad spectrum of issues. As mentioned in the CFA ruling, the administration should address the issue of gender recognition. So the IWG will see how gender recognition should be done in Hong Kong. If yes, what are the prerequisites or criteria medically, and it will even cover the marital status and the age of the persons concerned. Should the IWG will also consider legal implications of any conclusion by this group. IWG may review the implications on all laws in Hong Kong. So this is a very wide issue, and the IWG will study all these issues in depth. However, the amendment bill here is very focused, or some people may say that our scope is very limited. The intention is to address the CFA's ruling. The CFA has directed that a person who has undergone full SRS is entitled to get married in the reassigned sex under the marriage ordinance in Hong Kong. We believe this is important because as a matter of law, we do have the right to reflect the CFA's ruling in the ordinance. And secondly, we should clear all the queries of stakeholders, including lawyers and also other parties that the CFA's ruling applies. I asked a very direct question, and yet the DS has evaded that question. I asked whether the passage of this bill or not will have an impact on the decision of the IWG. The DS evaded this question. It doesn't matter. I will ask this question again later. And paras 1819, many religious bodies, including in particular Christian bodies that I know, are asking such questions. Having read the two paragraphs, I'm not sure whether Christian churches can refuse to solemnize marriages for members of their own church who have gone through SRS. Now, if a religious organization refuse to celebrate marriages of post-operative transsexuals, it appears that they would not be affected. Is it true that their right to refuse to celebrate such marriages is protected? We say that under the marriage ordinance authorizes places where marriages can be celebrated. However, there is nothing in the provisions to direct how these premises should decide to solemnize or to solemnize or to celebrate marriages of particular persons, and the ruling is also silent on this. We do understand that this issue has to be addressed, so this bill will be passed to the IWG for its consideration. Now, exactly because of this, I don't believe that the bill should be passed so quickly. You say that this bill is about marriage between a man and a woman, one of which is a post-operative transsexual, but you have not addressed the issue of a pastor or priest who is empowered by the law to celebrate marriages, because a marriage solemnized by a priest or a pastor is legally is recognized by law. Now, if a couple with one partner being a Christian, and if it's found that one partner is a post-operative transsexual, if the minister refuses to celebrate that marriage, there is no protection under this law for the minister from being prosecuted for discrimination. I don't know whether it will be a form of discrimination under the discrimination ordinance. You can't say that the CFA ruling is silent on that. You can't answer me. And para 1819, you give us rubbish. about religious freedom and the Bill of Rights, and the marriage ordinance does not prohibit different religious bodies from determining rules relating to the celebration of marriages. What are you talking about? Please don't beat around the bush. I think the answer is clear. There is no prohibition of individual churches to refuse to celebrate such marriages. All right, Mr. Tommy John. No, there is no guarantee here, no safeguard. Now, if a church refuses to celebrate such a marriage, the question is, will there be any legal implications? Will the church commit an offense? All right, will there be any legal implications? I can only say that the MO has no provision to prohibit or to dictate how a minister or a religious body or a solicitor should celebrate marriages. They can decide according to their own principles. And of course, in making that decision, they have to take into account provisions in the Basic Law and the Bill of Rights. So to put it simply, according to your understanding, is it that there will be no breach of other legislation? Is that your understanding, or legal advisor can help? I've already set out the situation of the current provisions. Legal advisor. Members may recall that when we met deputations, there's an organization called Christians of the Bar, and a lawyer came to make recommendations. And members should also have received his submission. He's saying that if a minister, as said by Mr. Tommy Zhang, refused to celebrate marriages for post-operative transactions, then he might be in breach of some sex discrimination provisions. And may I point out that the EOC is of the view that the DO, Disability Discrimination Ordinance, applies to post-operative transactions because they believe that gender dysphoria is a kind of disease or disability, so the DDO applies. That being the case, well, under the DDO, if a person is denied certain services on the basis of his disability, I think by service we can also cover the celebration of marriages by ministers in religious premises. So it is our view that refusal by a minister may breach provisions under the DDO. So some organizations, including the one I mentioned just now, asked for some exemption. For instance, religious organizations will not be required to celebrate marriages of any person whom they have reasonable ground to believe who have carry out SRS. I'll ask in the second round. Are we going to end at 6:30? No, 7. Mr. Ray Chen, I fully appreciate Mr. Tommy Zhang's worry. On surface, this may seem to be a marriage ordinance, and therefore the bureau in charge is the Security Bureau. In fact, it is more than a marriage ordinance, as said by the legal advisor. The DDO, Disability Discrimination Ordinance, may be valid.
And I don't think the Security Bureau is in a position to answer the question. The DDO let's offer protection to transsexuals. Transactions must be given equal and fair treatment. The Secretary for Security, Mr. Lai, is not present today. He has written an article in the newspapers stating that this bill has transformed the CFA's ruling into a bill, no more, no less. And I believe members may not agree with him. The CFA says that people like W can get married. But then, what about those not in exactly the same situation as W? That's something for LegCo to decide. If today the bill put forward by the administration is passed as it is, then those who are in exactly the same situation as W can get married. And those who are not in exactly the same position or situation as W cannot get married. In other words, we together with the administration write the second half of the CFA's judgment, so to speak. So it's not that this bill represents the CFA's judgment or reflects the CFA's judgment, no more, no less. Now, concerning whether this is torture, I mean SRS, according to the doctors, if people want SRS voluntarily, then that's not torture. Mr. Lai is saying that this bill represents this reflects the CFA's ruling in full. But then, as I have said, if we pass this bill, then we, together with the administration, are deciding that those who are not in exactly the same situation as W cannot get married. If they want to get married, they have to undergo full SRS, as stated in the bill. And that's torture because these people want to obtain or enjoy a basic human right, and that is to get married. And the law requires that a full SRS is required. And that's what we mean by torture. Now, the administration, can you tell us that this will not give rise to legal disputes? Now, I'm not saying that those who haven't undergone SRS should be allowed to marry. But I agree with Dr. Chow. Now, the Immigration Department has got administrative guidelines. So there are procedures to change the gender on the ID card. So please do not ask us to pass a piece of legislation or make a law which may contravene the UN Convention. Now, in fact, after the 16th of July, people can get married anyway. So why do you want us to play the role of the wicked guys, so to speak? And even if the pro-establishment members do not support the government, in this case, it doesn't matter. These people will still be able to get married after the 16th of July. Now, the administration tries to lobby members for the support, but then in fact, what the administration is doing is keep repeating its arguments. Now, making this law will not create any advantages, in my view. Yes, Ms. Wong. Yes, Mr. Chan has, I think, got to the crux of the matter. And let me state this once again. The Secretary has already said this before, and he has already said this in his article, and that is, we want to reduce what is in the CFA's ruling into our statutes. No more, no less. No bias. And we're not asking LegCo to come up with part 2 of the matter. In fact, part 2 is being worked on by the Interdepartmental Working Group. In fact, last time the secretary of the IWG came to report the progress of the work of the working group to members. So concerning cases, not the same as the W case, there hasn't been any court ruling yet, and so the Interdepartmental Working Group is now studying the issue of gender recognition very carefully, including those who haven't undergone any surgeries. So I just want to say that we haven't put a full stop on that front. Now, I do not quite agree with Mr. Chen Chi-chun. I don't think the administration is putting pressure on the legislature to do certain things. I think, in fact, the CFA is asking us to do certain things. Mr. Paul Chair. Chairman, concerning the CFA's ruling, para 124, it says we will not seek to lay down a rule that only those who have had full gender reassignment surgery, blah, blah, blah. Now, under the bill, it says that if a person has undergone or received a full SRS, then that person is treated as a transsexual, blah, blah, blah. But then, concerning the subsequent clauses, they go beyond the scope of the CFA's ruling. The marriage ordinance and the marriage matrimonial proceedings ordinance do not state definitions for males and females. But then here, with this provision, you are drawing a very rigid line, and that is not consistent with the CFA's ruling. And then, if there is another case before the CFA will make use, will cite this provision and regard this provision as unconstitutional. So it really won't do any good. Yes, Ms. Wong, thank you. I thank Mr. Paul Chair for having carefully studied the bill. Para 125 of the CFA's judgment says that a transsexual person who has been issued with a certificate that his or her gender has been changed on the basis that the original genital organs have been removed, blah, 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 ought in any event to qualify as a person entitled to marry in his or her acquired gender. Yes, and in fact, the advice of experts like Dr. Yun has been cited in many parts. For example, what is meant by removing, what is meant by reconstructing or constructing. And so there is the standard laid down in para 125 of the judgment. This standard has already been laid down by the CFA, and that is a full SRS. All right, no problem if it's full SRS. But the bill says that for the marriage ordinance and the matrimonial causes ordinance, they need to be construed accordingly. That's problematic. The CFA has left the doors open, but then you are not doing that. So you are not strictly following or adhering to the CFA's ruling. And you, in doing this, may make our laws unconstitutional. If P then Q, then it doesn't mean that Q therefore P. And I think that that's logically flawed. I think our approach is clear. The CFA has considered the facts of the case. Certain organs have been removed and constructed, and so we're just putting this down very clearly. Now, I don't argue with you on this, but I'm talking about 40A1 Part 2. It says in future the two ordinances will have to be construed accordingly. So you are in fact closing the doors. Now, in fact, having the statutes is to have things clearly written down. But then the IWG will come up with its recommendations. I hope that you can consider this part of clause 40 capital A bracket 1. Please look at the wording. Please refer to the CFA's ruling, para 1 to 4, and then give us a reply next time. So I believe you're saying that this may violate the CFA's ruling. You're not saying that the provision is unconstitutional, right? Because the CFA said that the provision was unconstitutional. And then it says that if one has undergone full RS, one should be regarded as a male or a female. But then it says here that the matrimonial causes ordinance and this ordinance should be construed in the same manner, and that's where the problem lies. Ms. Sit Ho. Now, concerning religious organizations refusing to celebrate a marriage for transsexuals, the DDO is the basis on which the other discrimination ordinances were put together. Now, I want to say that under the DDO, discrimination on the ground of sex, there is a religious exemption. You can easily find that section. Religious organizations may refuse to provide certain services to non-followers. For example, funeral and burial at the Catholic cemetery. For example, only Catholics are given the service. But previously, there was no case of discrimination of this sort, or there wasn't any allegation of discrimination. I don't want people in the religious sector to impose their religious values on public administration. And similarly, concerning 100% religious matters, church matters, I don't think we should superimpose public administration yardsticks on such. I think public administration and religious matters should be separated. Public administration should not be affected by a certain religious value. Now, some say that when we legislate, we need to take into account certain religious values. For example, but then I said that as Buddhists do not eat meat, do we need to legislate against eating meat? So when we're talking about 100% religious affairs, services, then there should be exemption. I understand that it's difficult to draw the line, but still I think the administration has the responsibility to draw this line.
According to current legislation, as pointed out by the legal advisor and also by Ms. Hill, the application of current discrimination provisions will not be affected by the ruling in W's case or by the amendment bill. That's what I want to supplement. Chairman, the EOC as well as the people in the legal sector who say that transsexuals may involve the DDO, but this can only be confirmed by the court after some litigations. But if we can come to an agreement and work it out, then we don't have to waste time to go to the court, because for such cases, usually they go all the way up to the CFA. So the administration should consider the perspective of equal opportunities. And may I give notice that I'm going to move 2 amendments to the bill. I hope that by the next meeting I can give you the CSAs in both English and Chinese. Good. Mr. Tommy Zhang. Chairman, that's why right from the beginning, I don't want to rush through, because we keep saying that the IWG led by the SPJ is considering such matters, but we don't know what will be the outcome of its review. Whether we pass the bill or not, administratively, as put up by the DS, this is not going to affect the handling of marriages involving post-operative transsexuals by the administration. I see no reason why such a controversial and complicated bill should be enacted so quickly. And before the IWG has come up with a full set of recommendations with legislative proposals, I don't see why we should enact the bill now. I am not confident that within such a short period of time, i.e. before the 9th of July, I can make a very well-considered decision on how to vote on this bill. And this is not the question of my blocking the bill, because many questions have yet to be answered. So Ms. Ho talked about exemption for religious organizations in burial matters and the use of graveyards. Now, assuming that I have religious belief, I'm a lawyer, I can solemnize marriages, and I refuse to celebrate marriages of post-operative transsexuals, then I'm doomed. Now, Yok Chow claimed that it is a disability, but I have not heard so from any of the doctors here. After SRS, why do you say that it is a disability? So there will be a court case all the way to the CFA. I may say that Yok Chow has a disability. I can also claim that I'm disabled. Will you give me a car park pass for disabled car parking space? Now, if I can celebrate a marriage, I refuse to carry out or to celebrate marriages for such persons because of my religious conviction. Can I be exempted? Even though there is exemption for religious organizations, I cannot enjoy the exemption. Luckily, I'm not a lawyer. Yes. It depends on whether the persons involved are covered by the DDO, Disability Discrimination Ordinance. In principle, or broadly speaking, WHO regard gender dysphoria as a disease. But is it really, is the person concerned really a disabled person? I think it depends on the case. And whether a person who can celebrate a marriage refuse to do it will be in breach of the DDO will very much depend on the provisions. My question has not been answered. I'm a lawyer. I can solemnize a marriage, and because of my religious conviction, I refuse to celebrate a marriage involving such a person. So even though I have my religious conviction, I may not be able to enjoy the exemption. Legal advisor. Using the DDO, whether you are a lawyer or a religious person. Now, if you refuse to celebrate a marriage of a person who is a post-operative transsexual, you might breach the DDO. The second issue is whether the person is disabled. According to the doctors, psychological or surgical treatment may have been offered. Still, the person has that dysfunction. He still has gender dysphoria. Is it a disability? Well, I base on the document provided by the EPO. Well, if I have tingling of my ears, well, it is an impairment, but is it a disability? Well, the DDO has definition for disability. According to the submission by EOC, mental disorder falls into the definition of disability under the DDO. That's EOC's view. And because of that, DDO applies to this situation. A follow-up. So what about exemption pointed out by Ms. Sid Ho? Is it you disagree that the exemption under the DDO will not offer exemption for any ministers who refuse to celebrate such marriages? Legal advisor. All right, thank you. Whether there is any exemption, well, if we look at this situation, there is no exemption for a minister to refuse to celebrate marriages involving transsexual persons, even though by so doing he will be in breach of his political conviction. And whether conviction should be granted is a policy decision. Mr. Ray Chen, I believe that exemption is for religious bodies, not for individuals with their religious conviction or belief. This is what in the discrimination legislation, and the ordinances were not enacted by Yorkshire but by LegCo. And I think there are also medical guidelines, and it is not something that can be dealt with under this amendment bill. Regarding the question of torture, will I not repeat the comments by the doctors. I'd like to ask the administration whether you have assessed the risk of lawsuits claiming that people are forced to subject to such torture of SRS as a result of the bill. If yes, if we have the risk of breaching the legislation against torture, why should we do this? Why should we still seek to pass the bill? And if we do not include full SRS in this bill, if we follow the well-established guidelines for the immigration ordinance and change the Hong Kong ID, won't it be better than having an amendment bill that may give rise to the risks I just outlined. And since you have been using the guidelines for the immigration ordinance, why can't it be done simply by the medical council or by the medical sector concerned? It is better than specifying in the bill the extent of SRS a person has to undergo before he can be regarded as having changed his sex. EOC asked whether we can deal with it using administrative guidelines. I think the EOC has gone beyond that. EOC wants us not to include the requirement of a full SRS. This is exactly the opposite of what the bill seeks to do. The bill seeks to translate CFA's ruling into our statute law. Para 125 of the ruling has made very clear that a transsexual that has removed his genitals by birth and has constructed genitals of the opposite sex should be entitled to get married with a person of the opposite sex. Now, if we go by EOC's proposal, then we won't be able to implement the CFA ruling. And I'm very pleased that I'm very grateful that experts have come here to share with us experience. Medically speaking, people with gender dysphoria is a necessary means of treatment. And I think it is clearly set out in international medical documents. This is exactly the situation of W. W had to receive treatment so as to address her dysphoria. So CFA has taken into account these facts, and the ruling was based on the facts of the case. So I fail to see how we will breach Human Rights Ordinance or the Bill of Rights by putting CFA's ruling in the statute. For people who have not carried out full SRS or who has not done any SRS at all, there is no discussion by the CFA. And we believe the bill is in line with the Basic Law and also the Bill of Rights. Well, of course, it was not torture for W to go through full SRS because she did it of her own volition. Back then, there was no such bill. Now, we don't want that with the passage of the bill, people would be coerced into go through more SRS because they want to enjoy the right to marriage. And this will be in breach of the Convention Against Torture. Yes. Legally speaking, we're only dealing with situation dealt with by the CFA's ruling for scenarios involving other people. Well, the IWG is dealing with that. The message I got from medical doctors is patients or these persons make their decision on their needs. There is no one who could force them to go through full SRS. Can you wait for IWG's recommendations? You should not change the law. And because people may be forced to go through SRS because they want to get married under the bill. Well, we are supposed to end at 7 this evening, and I think our discussion will involve the work of the IWG, because gender recognition is a very controversial topic in society, and As Ma Feng Kwok said, it may take more than a year, even up to 5 years before the IWG can have any conclusion looking at overseas experience.
So 70 members in this council may have different views on the matter. And also members in this news committee do have different emphasis. I think we need to adjourn now. Our next meeting will be held on the 16th of June and then on the 17th of June, 4:30 p.m. on the 16th of June and then 10:45 on the 17th of June. Ms. Sit Ho said that she had some CSAs to propose. And members, if you've got CSAs, please also put them forward next time. I want to say that I haven't really set a deadline, so it depends on the progress of our work. But we have borne in mind the date 16th of July because we do respect the CFA's ruling. We try our best to do our work, right? So I think we can adjourn here. AOB 4:30 on the 16th and then 10:45 on the 17th. Yes, all right. So the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.